Good morning and welcome to This Morning on TVC, broadcasting all over the country and indeed beyond. In Lagos, southwest of the country where we're broadcasting from right now, it started out a wet sort of a day. It's right now, even as we're speaking, it's still draining, so that sort of cools things down a bit. However, I don't think it's going to cool down the sort of tempo we have towards the 57th anniversary of Nigeria, independence anniversary, which comes up on a Sunday. And now we've been looking at perspectives. Yesterday we looked at Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's perspective that restructuring is, quite frankly, the only way to progress. No, absolute no to disunity, but we got to restructure. That was yesterday. Indeed, some of that might bleed into today and down the week. Today we take a quote from Professor Ango Abdullahi, former Vice Chancellor at the Ahmadu Bello University at one time, and spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. As far as the learned professor is concerned, Nigeria is a failure at 57. He wrote, well, he was reported as saying that if Nigeria was one of his pupils as a teacher, know how he could pass Nigeria. Nigeria is a failure. And then one of the planks as to the reason for this failure, according to the learned professor, was that if you go back, in fact, you have to go back to understand where the beginning of this failure started from. And he put it squarely at the doorsteps of the late General Murtala Muhammad. He said it was Murtala Muhammad, when he came on in a military coup, that actually messed up or started the process of the messing up of Nigeria. How is that? Because he messed up the civil service. Well, I leave you to think what you will. We'll explore that perspective, the general perspective of the somewhat, some might say, harsh judgment of Nigeria being a failure at 57. My guest this morning, Hassan Abdulaziz Sani. As always, we're delighted to have you, communications specialist and a communication special professional and opinion molder. Thank you very much for coming on.
Good morning, Mr. Yori, and good morning, Nigerians.
My pleasure. Just Yori, please. And Dr. Chima Naji, my friend, lawyer, and public affairs analyst. Thank you, as always, for coming on.
Thank you very much, Yori.
Let me stay with you, if I may, Dr. Naji. Your assessment, generally, as a starter, about how we are doing, how Nigeria is doing, as we move into our 57th birthday on Sunday?
Well, I wouldn't subscribe to the view that Nigeria is a failure, because that is an irredeemable statement. When you have failed, you are already on the ground. If you are failing, there's a salvage value. And I also wouldn't want to say that Nigeria has not done well in the absolute sense. Okay. Because it was programmed by those who ought to have made it do better to look like this. So it is not the fault of Nigeria, if you get my drift. If you have a daughter that you want to give out in marriage, you want her to look her best. But if you want to scare suitors because you think you love her so much and want to keep her in your house, it's very easy to know what to do. And that's what many people that have had the opportunity to govern or manage the affairs of this country have done. Some through inadvertence, sheer ignorance. They regret it when they come out, but the harm would have been done anyway. So the point is not so much about whether Nigeria has failed or is failing. Even the individuals who may be saying Nigeria or making that verdict they are in one way or the other also contributed, such that if it was not by the intervention of God, their singular contributions would have even led to the final death of the country, so to speak. But God, like many people say, is a Nigerian. Perhaps in the course of this discussion, we will amplify on that.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Naji. Alhaji Sani, when you look at the dark, shall I say, assessment of Professor Ango Abdullahi, that he would have to fail Nigeria. Countries that we became independent together around the same time, in the opinion of the professor, are doing much, much better. I think he looked at Indonesia, Malaysia, and those kind of places. Would you agree with, well, first of all, it's common knowledge. People have said that Nigeria was tethering on the brink before the arrival of this administration. But then, Professor Ango Abdullahi is saying around this time that his assessment is that Nigeria is a failure. It begins to make me wonder, but wait a minute, he's part of the ruling elite, he's part of the ruling party, and isn't he impressed with efforts that are going on? What's your assessment of his judgment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ori. Professor Ango Abdullahi is part of the Nigerian intellectuals, and is a politician, an intellectual turned politician. So by whatsoever we look at him, his opinion must be a subject of public scrutiny. We will not look at him as somebody that is not partisan. He is partisan, and his opinion should be viewed from that angle. Nigeria is not a failure, and he was part of the system. He was formerly a vice chancellor of a premier university, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. And for you to come out now and say Nigeria is a failure, I look at it and look, you must be part of the people that made it to fail.
Okay, because I wonder if
it's much more a self-indictment.
Okay.
Because for you to be a leader of a university after the independence of Nigeria, and for you now to take your biro and mark it down, it's an indictment on you. And I don't think Nigeria is a failure, because Nigeria, no matter what, we had different leaders at different times in Nigeria. Some came, some are here. We had the good, the bad, and ugly, in which, as I'm talking now, a lot of Nigerians knew those ones that are the good, those ones that are the bad, and those the ugly ones among them.
By the way, which one or two would you call the good?
The good, even the Murtala regime he marked down was one of the good ones, because he came with his revolutionary zeal to change the country for the better. He had his own frustration to go for the civil servants. He had it to go for them, to go for their head. Because, you know, it's like the adage of Igbos that said, you don't talk bad, don't talk ill of the dead.
No, I don't think it's the Igbos. I think a lot of people believe that.
No,
but in particular,
it's much more pronounced.
Okay.
You understand?
You don't talk ill of the dead.
Of the dead, because he will not be there to defend himself. You understand?
Okay.
But fortunately, or unfortunately for him, Dr. Ango Abdullahi, with due respect to him,
Professor, actually,
Professor Ango Abdullahi, with due respect to him, I knew a lot of people would react, because in every stimulus, the response will follow.
When he said, Dr. Naji, that that Nigeria is a failure at 57, no doubt he must have also had in his mind in there that this is because we haven't achieved the potential that he expected of us at this age. Indeed, he's probably not alone in that regard. Just about every nationalist, every politician of note today, that was born before 1960, that might have been a 10, 15-year-old boy in 1960 when we became independent, had great dreams, great notions, great aspirations of the value of independence and what it would do to us as a nation. But here we are, coming to be 57 years on, and it's nowhere near the promise a lot of people would say. Or would you say, Chima, that quite frankly, you get what you put in. What you put in is what you can take out.
Well, ordinarily, the computer age principle is garbage in, garbage out. But like you referred to stimulus and response, But in psychology, there's a factor of mentalism that mediates between stimulus and response, such that if there's stimulus of slap, it is not all the time that you return the slap, because you may have thought, this person I want to slap back, can he kill me? The slap may be introduction to your way to the grave. So you look at the slap, you take it and run away. Or you even plead with the person if in your own mind you felt that you have done wrong. So there is mentalism. That's what makes us as human beings. Okay? Coming to the question. Ordinarily, I would love that the discussion, yes, we have picked what Professor Ango Abdullahi has said.
Which is his own personal opinion.
Yes, but we can pick it away and leave him aside. You understand? Because it could lead to what a fallacy in argument they call argumentum ad hominem. You leave the issue and begin to attack the person. He has been a very controversial person, both as Vice Chancellor and the students in those days know, what I am talking about. But he is not the issue. What he said should be the issue.
Indeed.
Then there may be other people who subscribe to that opinion, or who may be persuaded by a personality like him had said it, it might be true. The fact of the matter is that in this country, almost all those people who are today managing the affairs of this country are those who benefited immensely from this country and whatever it had to offer. Time there was, even in not so distant time, a graduate of this country had 4 or 5 jobs waiting for him in blue chip multinational organization with cars, air-conditioned cars, waiting. And they came to interview people in the universities. School cert holders had good jobs in the banks and so on. It was in this country. With your PhD today, in fact, you have just transmuted into the executive mode of unemployment. That's executive unemployment, because your chances are narrowed. Sometimes you may not have teaching appointment. And sometimes too, with that certificate, you don't have quality in those who parade these things. So the issue is, when and how did the country begin to slide? Greed was the main driver in governance. Many of the people who found themselves in positions of authority put greed on the table and started to put flesh on it. Greed was like the skeletal framework. They now started putting flesh. This flesh could be ethnicity, religious bigotry, class, distinction, segregations, using all manners of primordial sentiments to galvanize forces behind them to sustain their greed and access to the national till.
And this greed had somehow been in check or not been visible before independence?
Even before independence, the zeal, because there was a superordinate goal, the zeal was higher than the greed of the individual. Greed was there, that when we get the elephant and bring it home, I want to carry the leg. Then the other one say, okay, the knife I have may not be enough to go for the head, but at least I will be able to chop the leg or the hand. You understand what I mean? But people subsumed that greed because the elephant was still yet in the bush. So that was also when we missed the opportunity. Because if you don't have what they call superordinate goal, people will not key into it. Let me give you a simple example here now, as we are, 3 of us. He has bucket, you have the water, I have the cup. And nobody will drink from the bucket. And you cannot take the water from the well. So we need ourselves, isn't it?
We need each other.
Yes. Even if I don't like you, I must cooperate in order to have water. We have not been able to establish that in this country. So there is no superordinate goal that is driving that patriotism towards Nigeria. Everybody is balkanizing that elephant.
There you go, Hassan. I think what Chima has done is that he's landed us smack into restructuring, even though he never used the word. The cup, the bucket, and the water. And no one can make any use of it until the three of you cooperate. Would you read this as, this is, because it struck me that way, how does that particular diagram strike you when it relates to Nigeria and our problems of living together?
You know what, Mr. Yori? I got the illustration of Dr. Naji. It's about interdependence nature of human beings. Interdependence. None is independent. You need each other to function. And you see, a country like Nigeria, as I've said earlier in the previous program, said all the geographical areas of Nigeria are solidly economically buoyant to contribute to the development of the whole.
They all have the potential.
They have the potentials. No doubt about that. What we are having here is selflessness. We lack the selflessness. All this issue of restructuring, no restructuring, it's about greed. It's about lack of selflessness.
And yesterday I tried to bring it in, this whole matter about what exactly is the ideology of any political party. Is there any ideology towards what Chima referred to as an overarching ambition?
Subordinate goal.
You know, that goal that is subordinate. That I was trying to suggest yesterday, and I'm bringing it for questioning here today. Do we have that ideology of, you are calling it selflessness now. Other people might call it patriotism. But this whole matter about winner takes all, you can't be sure about this country. So right here, I'm going to steal as much as I can steal without getting caught. And that's all this whole matter of greed coming all over again. What do we have to do to get to that stage where we realize that it is the only way we can get along? We know it, it makes common sense, but we don't go for it. It's like we don't believe in what we know.
Let me put it this way. I've said it before, I will say it again. When this issue of restructuring started, and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar threw his own weight behind it, and the press also amplified it. I was here. I said it to whoever cares to listen, that what we needed in Nigeria is not restructuring. It's not the restructuring people are talking about. What we needed is the restructuring of mind. Positive restructuring of mind. Let us be positive.
Okay, one moment. I'm going to take a break right here because you've introduced a whammy, a big one. You're talking about our collective behavior as a nation. We'll come back and look at that big, giant elephant right now. Stay with us, please. Welcome back, and we're looking at matters concerning Nigeria and its development in the lead up to the Sunday independence anniversaries. Professor Ango Abdullahi, he threw a curved ball and said that Nigeria at 57, as far as he's concerned, is a failure. If he were a teacher and Nigeria is one of his pupils, he can't see how he would pass him. Now, just before we went, Alhaji Hassan Abdulaziz Sani had said that the restructuring that is that is very much trending now as a topic, yeah, but don't get it wrong, it's a restructuring of the mind that we need to do, right, Alhaji?
Yes.
Now, the question I have for you is that the mind. Philosophers down the ages have known that nothing is as unruly as the mind. So the mind wants to be a free spirit, a Mustang, and you are saying that we have to make it into a rideable horse that will obey our every knee prod, our every pull of the rein. In short, do what God intended the mind to do. How do you think we're going to achieve that in good enough time?
Why did we vote for Buhari? We voted for Buhari because Buhari is selfless. He was able to control his own mind. He was able to control his own biases. His integrity is intact. That was why we voted for him. Why can't we imbibe him? Look, as a Muslim, every Friday I knew the same thing.
Buhari has spent his whole lifetime getting to where he is today that you call integrity.
Yeah.
So that when he declared his assets, we saw how frugal the man had been living.
Yes.
It took him a whole lifetime.
Thank you. Why can't we emulate him? What stops us? He's a mortal like us. The issue is this. The most important, look, even in jihad people are talking about. Jihad is not the way people are going about it. Jihad is, you should start jihad with your mind. All those things you think you can't compromise, you fight it, you compromise them. You understand? Whatsoever.
That's because you've got to have a will first. When you have a will, when you agree, for instance, and let's stay on the greed that you guys have thrown up there, both of you agree on that. When you know that it is wrong to be greedy, no book accepts it.
Yeah.
Neither the Quran nor the Bible, and that's written by the Lord God Almighty. So if you're not going to obey that, so is it the National Orientation Agency that we are all now going to obey?
It is not
because I want what you're saying to be true, but I'm just looking at it. It's so impractical that it's going to take us a lifetime to get where Buhari got.
It's very, very practical.
Okay.
It's very, very practical.
Without leaving our free will there.
You know what? Whatsoever, just have it at the back of your mind.
Okay.
That I want to stop this. I want to do this. The same way people goes about their New Year resolutions. People are biased about it. You understand? They look for what suits them and take it.
So I'm going to start working for Nigeria.
Yes.
I'm going to,
look, you are going to be selfless.
I'm going to be selfless.
The most cardinal principle is for you to be selfless.
So when I get into that public office, whatever it is, I'm not going to look out for my own benefit. I'm going to be working for the development of the society.
Every Fridays.
Yes.
They remind us. I don't know of our Christian brothers.
They remind them too.
Every Friday.
Yeah, that one is every Sunday.
The Imam will be on the podium. He will address you by saying to each and every Muslim that Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan wa ita'i lil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkar wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Be fair. It's about being fair, be just, and be selfless. You understand? But here we are. Are we abiding by it?
Okay,
because we took the other way around.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to come back to you, of course. First of all, Chima, how well does religion and politics mix in the first place? And then perhaps the problem that he started, that this whole restructuring thing, we're getting it all wrong. It's the mind that needs to be restructured to stop doing what it wants to do. We should now make it do what we want to do it. We want to make it to do. This is a problem that meditation students have been grappling with for God knows how many hundreds or if not thousands of years.
First and foremost, even the last statement he made seemed to contradict the position he took earlier. The preachment in mosques and in churches. You talked about Fridays, you talked about Sundays. Will always be there. Haven't we seen both Christians and Muslims caught for stealing? Prominent ones. Which goes to support your thesis that the mind is a very pliable zone. In psychology, as well as in classical philosophy, we know that mind has might over matter. This is material body. The mind directs it. If somebody says idiot to somebody, It is the mind that will let you know whether you should respond with your physical body by stretching your hands to. It is the interpretation you give it. That is why philosophers of old insisted on knowledge, that you should tutor the mind so that it will produce character. If you tutor the body, it will produce reputation. They are two different things. Reputation is what people in his trade, media, and all that, burnish in public relations. But character inures with the mind and the soul of the person.
So what happened to our character?
The character of the leadership of this country over years, there's no character. They have reputation. That's why you have reactionary conducts. A man, if, for example, if you get one or two people killed, the policeman may not have been there, but instead of acknowledging that somebody died, he'll begin to defend. As if people have already said, you killed him. I don't know whether you get the point.
I do.
It is available, I mean, it happens in all facets of our lives. You go to the ministry, everybody is on the defensive. Instead of thinking on how to improve the system. We lack thinkers in governance. And even from the Plato's Republic, which is a classical political philosophy of the old, knowledge was the first thing. And you don't acquire it from the air. He provided process of training that will produce what he called the statesman. Not the kind of statesman we have today. When you are 70, they say you are a statesman. Even when you have spent 40 years of your life destroying this country from your own corner of the
because of your age, they call you a statesman.
They call you statesman. When you are, in fact, a village man, ordinarily.
From what you're saying, it seems to me that Nigeria is indeed ill. The only positive we can put on that is perhaps the idea that but it is on the way to mending.
There are a lot of Nigerians who meet many of the standards. They are the ones sustaining the system, but they are not sung.
Aha. You know what? I'm going to go on another break. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and quickly to jump into it again, we're trying to understand what we what are some of the things that we need to grapple with, you know, on our quest to mending as a nation and indeed going forward and realizing our full potential.
You know, I just want to address the issue of restructuring. You know, talking about mind.
Yeah.
My own position is that in as much as you need to have the right mental attitude, but if you do not cultivate it yourself because you don't have the character, because character helps you to check yourself, to impose self-discipline, to be egalitarian, because a big man in the midst of poor people is a poor man. He can never sleep, because the poor ones will importunate him, beg him. If he doesn't agree, they will attack him. So the best way to realize your sleep is to let others sleep well too.
Yeah.
So the issue of restructuring, every day we restructure. The president just came back from restructuring himself. He was also negotiating
so many different levels.
He was also negotiating with God for his life. So restructuring, negotiation, all these things are taking place at every level, at all times, and in different manners.
Whatever we call it.
So we are saying that this restructuring that is people are calling for ought to have happened yesterday, so that there will be opportunity for people to grow at their own pace. From you, according to your strength, and to you, according to your need, not your want. That is a fair system.
People often say, Alhaji Sani, that what is better than democracy? You know, if people complain that, look, this is the democratic process, you have to live with what it throws up, and sometimes it can be very, very difficult, to which people say, so, can you think of anything better? Okay, so let's just leave that argument right there. It's hard. It's hard to come up with any more fairer concept. But the issue here, I think, is how do we get all of us, well, most of us, to be thinking along the lines you guys are talking about? What is on the ground right now is that government is seen as a cake that I need to get my own slice of. Any administration, they're going to be boatloads of people, whether they're useful or not,
sharing.
They want to share because I put my hand on your train when you were going to be elected. Now that you've got there, you owe me. So the only purpose of government, to a large extent,
in Nigeria,
is
to share. No baking.
So how do we come out of that?
We should be selfless. Do you know what?
So all this service, if you put yourself up for office now, and all of us begin to work for your waiting call, I must be selfless in doing that, not expect any results when you get there.
You know what? People that brought Buhari into government, they think about the country first.
Okay.
They had the love of the country first. Before all the material whatsoever.
Of making their choice.
Yes.
Love of the country first.
Yes.
Before making the choice from the available candidates.
Because they saw a country that was really vandalized, and they just have to put their selfish interest by the side and fight for the recovery. You understand? Capture it first and recover the country.
I disagree.
And you know what? You are entitled to opinion.
Yes.
You are entitled to opinion.
Yes.
You see, you accuse me of being contradicting myself. and I found you in that shoe.
Okay.
You are the one because you are saying something now,
No, go ahead,
and
go
you are
ahead,
contradicting yourself.
Because the ideas we're talking about here, they're in the mental realm. It's about how we, you see, they say as a man thinketh, in his heart, so
he
is
acted. Yes.
This is forming us.
So he acts,
Are you sure that we have selfless people in government, in politics? Wait a minute, politics of Nigeria today.
Yes.
How selfless is politics of Nigeria today? Let's start from there.
No, there are some people, there are many of them that are selfless. More especially.
Well, as Chima said, it is those few that are selfless, that are sustaining
allow
the
me
boat,
to say
right?
it. Okay, sir.
Because of time.
No. You can't be keying in all the time.
But yes,
you can't be keying
we still owe him some time.
Yes.
We owe you some time. Please go ahead.
You see, when people are talking about restructuring, the central theme of the whole topic now about restructuring, when they are talking about restructuring, do you have the drivers to drive the restructuring? I was here on this program when we had the first restructuring discussion. Mr. Just called. The other guy called from Dukpemu.
Yakub.
He called from Dukpemu. He said,
Mr. George from Ikeja.
He said, are you sure? There will be no restructuring within restructuring. Because all these agitations are tainted with selfish interest.
Which incidentally is another opinion that Mr. George endorsed yesterday.
And do you know what? You see, where are the drivers? This government came in and took the TSA as one of its own policy of probity, transparency, and accountability, which is really working. Because TSA is like you have a radar watching who takes what, and you must justify yourself for taking that thing. You understand? It's much more like a CCTV watching over you. You understand? You know, you have to be cautious about yourself. You caution yourself, and you have to be very, very careful about yourself. That is what TSA stands for.
I understand that.
You understand? But what is very clear, please let me ask you one question. How many states? Because people are talking of devolution of power now. We have to do devolution of power.
Yes,
power must come from the federal to state. Yes. You understand? You are struggling, people are struggling left, right, and center to have the power devolution to the state.
So all are not on board.
How many states subscribes and are operating TSA? How many states are accountable to their people? How many states are performing in Nigeria?
So
because people are struggling.
The point you're making is that there is division among us as to how to succeed in this quest. We're not all on the same page.
Let them go back to their states and perform first. Then come and justify devolution of power from center to your state.
Okay, Mr. Ola in Abuja, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. And I say good morning to your guests in the studio.
Good morning, Mr. Ola.
Yes, Uncle Yori, I'm going to disagree with one of your guests who said what Nigeria needs at this point in time is the restructuring of the mind. I completely disagree with him. What Nigeria needs now is that real sense of restructuring. I mean, that kind of rethinking that can move on from the position we are in now to a level that many Nigerians are clamoring for. With the system we are operating, with the kind of system we are operating, the best mind will come here and mess up. The best mind, the best brain, the most honest person will come to this country and mess up because of the system. The system will not allow him to work. No matter how honest you are, no matter how fit you are, no matter how professional you are as a person, the system of operating can never allow you to succeed. So if you don't do that, and we're talking about changing of mind, Uncle, I'm sorry, we're just wasting our time. This country needs to, move from the position we had now to the next eligible position. I've said it on this platform in time.
Okay.
And that goes to, I don't know if you this, sir. That goes to the people who are talking about, I've been hearing from people that the people who are clamoring for restructuring in this country are probably the people that lost out in the last election or something like that. It is not true. One of the core one of the vocal points of the APC manifesto is to restructure the country. So if people are calling them to fulfill their promise to Nigerians, I don't think that they're asking for too much. So in a nutshell, we need to restructure this country if we think things need to go right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ola, for calling in.
Let me just weigh in quickly.
Please.
First, when I said I disagree with him, it is not that what he was saying was completely or diametrically out of range. The problem even APC government is having with itself, like Assembly, National Assembly having problem with the executive and there's crossfire across, is because there's no selflessness.
Everybody's on the mix.
Your hand was on the button when you said that it is a rare quality, and in politics it is not. Because in every transaction you look for something for it.
Self-interest.
No adult, no big man or adult person does something free for the other. You do boy for a fee or some consideration. Because when you see a man carrying bottles after party, it's either the person who held the party is Oga, or he's looking for something from him. He's not a laborer. You understand? It's not foolish by carrying all those things and making things to be in order. There's something, in every transaction, there's something for somebody. So when we say those even who are clamoring for restructuring are doing that for their selfish interest, when interests that are selfish are aggregated and they become preponderant, that becomes the dominant interest. But that is a matter of academic discussion. But when we're talking about restructuring and who are going to drive it from the point he raised, there's what we call in human resources management, you feed the job to the man or you feed the man to the job. So training comes in. If the man you want to promote to the next job, the job is already there, but he doesn't have the qualification to do that job, you train him to acquire the skills.
Indeed. Let me quickly bring in Mr. George.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
And good morning to Alhaji Hassan and Dr. Naji.
Good morning, Mr. George.
Uncle Yori, I do not agree with Professor Ango on the statement he made. You cannot declare a result when an exam is still going on. Nigeria is a project. As long as the project is still ongoing, you may make mistakes, You may have the tours and contours, but you are yet to get to a destination. So it is premature then to say that we have failed. There are many things that we do that need to be corrected, but that is not to say that nothing is being done at all. Uncle Yori, about 5 years ago, nobody would have ever imagined that a number 3 man in a government would be docked for doing something wrong, or that a Supreme Court judge would be called to question and arraigned in his own court. But you may not have got convictions yet, but those are some steps that didn't happen before, and it has happened now, and who knows what might happen again tomorrow. So we should not give up to think that nothing is working.
Mr. George,
Yes,
could you just squeeze in something about that whole debate about restructuring is in the mind or it is physical?
Yes, I agree with Alhaji Hassan that we need attitudinal change. But the government in place, whoever is in government, should be someone that has already reached that level of thinking, so that he can put some measures in place and structure, just like Dr. Naji pointed out along the discussion, how the civil service is structured, how people's attitude is to work. You put some structures in place to discourage greed. If you have to avoid greed or contain greed, you have to encourage contentment.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you right now because of the almighty break. Sorry about that. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. Something of an interesting discussion that we're having. I want to comment on Mr. Ola, who called in from Abuja. He said he disagrees with your premise that it's essentially a mental reordering, restructuring that we need. His reason being that you bring the most reasonable-minded guy here with the clearest level of thinking into a place that is not organized, does not have any sort of a structure. He's not going to be able to function for that which made him famous elsewhere, of being a clear thinker.
Mr. Ola from Abuja, he made his own opinion known to all of us here. And my response to him is very clear. He made a reference to the emergence of Buhari, and he made a reference to the APC's manifestos. I got him very clear. The issue is this. We are the electorate.
Even though he didn't mention either of those two things, you still got him very clear. No, you still got him very clear.
No. The issue is this. He mentioned that in the manifestos of APC, the restructuring is there, and they voted for APC based on that. He mentioned it. It's on record. What is very clear here, you see, majority of people that voted for Buhari or voted for APC, they voted for it because of the mantra of change and demand the APC presented to save the country from total collapse.
You know, but it's just because we're talking the independence of Nigeria, I would have wanted to enlarge it even beyond Buhari.
The issue of restructuring you are seeing.
More than Buhari makes up the Nigeria of today.
No, the issue is this. The issue of restructuring people are talking about is elitist. It's elitist within the APC. But people, common men on the street that form the quantum of people that voted for Buhari did not have that right in mind. From the southwest to the north to everywhere, did not have that issue of restructuring on their mind.
Okay, they wanted change, but they didn't know how
we're
going to go about it.
Because of the man presented.
Yeah.
They voted for integrity.
You can't wave a magic wand.
Yes, but
you can't
very
wave
clear.
a magic
Somebody
wand.
must drive it.
Okay, Mrs. Ikemefuna, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. About restructuring, I think it's important Nigeria does that. They restructure the system because some people feel they are being marginalized, like the Igbos. since after the war, not one Igbo person has been the president of this country. They've gotten to the post of vice presidency. Secondly, the present government, they've not done good with what they've gotten in their hands. They've collected a lot of money. The Nigerian roads are bad. There are no jobs. They could create jobs for youth. They could create jobs. They could pick people from different localities and set up jobs. When Babangida was there, maybe being the most corrupt government we've ever had, they created jobs. There was difference in the country. There was difference. They created jobs. Youth have jobs. Villagers have jobs. People have things to hold on to. But this government keep claiming they are doing something, they are doing something. There is no electricity, there is no water.
So, Mrs. Ekemefuna,
No water.
Mrs. Ekemefuna, is the cup half empty then or half full?
The cup is more than half empty.
All right then. Thank you very much for your call.
Well, yes, just to put it very lightly, water is water. If it is in the large compartment, it can be called an ocean. It takes the shape, but the water will take the shape of the container.
Okay. Whatever the vessel is.
So that is the structure you will refer to. If you want to keep water in your fridge, you don't carry ocean. You must put it in the structure that is manageable within the space available. So when people are talking about restructuring and even the body continues to structure and restructure as we age. So
Indeed.
there is nothing sacrosanct about the word restructuring and even the concept. The point we are going to make here is that if you don't restructure, then you are not adjustive, because the environment keeps changing and you must keep adjusting to the environment to move forward. Most of the things we do in this country have emasculated a lot of people that would have taken us to the moon. Why would you want, by your own selfishness, carry a baby in your hand whom you claim to love so much? You'll be loving that baby and it will be dying. Instead of carrying it to somebody that can help you save that baby.
Yeah.
And you insist that because you love the baby, you hold it and be crying and watch the baby to die. That is what leadership of this country over the years have been doing.
Okay, Ishaq in Jos, good morning. Nigeria at 57, is the cup half full or half empty?
Good morning, Mr. Yeri.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to your guest, Misha Kaiwa Imam, from Jos. I want to begin with the assertion of Professor Ango Abdullahi.
No, before you go, before Abdullahi, is it half full or half empty?
I think I would say it's half empty.
Okay, there you go. Continue on to, Professor Abdullahi's assessment that we haven't done as well as we could have done.
Yes, in the assessment of Professor Ango Abdullahi, I agree with Professor Ango Abdullahi that Nigeria is a failure, judging from its contemporary nations, Japan, India, Brazil, Korea, Indonesia, etc., that were ranked pari passu in the early 60s. This nation I mentioned, Nigeria is richer than all these nations with natural resources, but they've been able to develop their nation far. Nigeria is lacking behind.
So what happened to us? What do you think happened?
I think it is a failure of leadership. Ango Abdullahi is not an exception, because the leaders, our leaders then, the likes of Obasanjo, Awolowo, Sardauna, Tafawa Balewa, they treated to this nation, they were patriotic. But the generation of Professor Ango Abdullahi and the current leaders we have had, they failed this nation by not being patriotic enough, by not being selfless. People see service as an opportunity to amass wealth. They do not see service and government as an opportunity to serve. So I think it's a weak of leadership, and even the civil service doesn't matter. We have a weak civil service. You see, public service will now see themselves as an opportunity to amass wealth. So I want to suggest that you need to restructure first before you restructure mind. Because if you don't have a working template, a restructured template that will guide, just like one of
Thank you very much, Mr. Ishaq. I've got to let go of you now. Thank you very much. You conclude with, we've got to restructure the environment first before any kind of mind, you know, the way we know mind can work and the power of the mind over matter. Part of it being over matter is that we have to have some sort of a restructured environment on the ground. Gentlemen, I couldn't believe it when the producer was saying into my ear that we've got 10 seconds to go. In other words, we've run out of time. Can I just thank you very much, Hassan Abdulaziz Sani, our communications professional, and Dr. Chima Naji. Can I thank you? And we're gonna continue this conversation, as you know, within the week. So thank you very, very much for coming. I know we barely scratched the surface, but really appreciate your coming. Okay, so that's our program. Join us tomorrow for yet another edition of this series leading up to Sunday. I'm Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.